My name is Carter Wells, and this is my administrative portfolio. I'm here to present this portfolio to you for my Ed 697 course. So the easiest way to do this would be to start from the beginning and work to the end. So here we go. Cover page has my name on it. This is in partial fulfillment for the continuing administrative licensure program. Then I have the table of contents, and we'll go through each individual item, so I'm not going to read the table of contents to you. We have my resume and references, and then some letters of recommendation. Then the practicum plan. In the practicum plan, there's basically three sections: key players, key events, and then the key projects. That's all listed there. Then the log sheet lists hours, and then after the log sheet is my journal of significant events, and that gets more specific about the hours and about what's going on, or what went on, Then it gets into the assessment section. I had the opportunity to assess a teacher in our district, and then we use the evaluation handbook, which is also included in the back of the portfolio for our district. And so then here's the formative evaluation form on the top, and then all the supplemental material behind it is things like reflection sheets from the teacher, self-assessments forms from the teacher, pre-observation forms, notes, that kind of stuff. All that's included right here. Wonderful process. Then I had the opportunity to evaluate a classified employee, one of our custodians in our building. Different format, obviously, a little bit more simplistic, but does evaluate the key areas in the middle of the form, and then from there we get into the examples of excellent performance and the need of improvement areas. And so those are useful, very useful, good learning tool and opportunity for you to help staff members grow. Then we have the interviews. I was able to interview multiple people in the district, multiple positions, and view what they were doing and how it is relevant to the orderly operation of the district as a whole. Then I built the graphic illustration, and you can see it starts with the school board and then funnels all the way down to all the different things that we do in our district. And so that's the first section, and then I'll go through each competency one at a time, starting with competency one, visionary leadership. One of the major things in the visionary leadership section that I was able to accomplish was curriculum development. We were able to align our curriculum and make curriculum adoption and curriculum alignment a priority in our district. This was very valuable. We were able to involve all of the major players or key players or stakeholders, however you want to say that, into this process. Then we went through the process with the school board and the evaluation of the materials, and then built a calendar so that we can stay on that process. So that was very valuable. All of those supplemental materials are included in this section. I won't go through them one at a time. But then as I return to this and look at it, evaluating it from my own perspective, it was very good for us to develop these goals. We used the SMART goal process. And so those are included in here also. And so now we can use the Smarter Balance assessment from last year in 15-16 as our baseline to evaluate how our curriculum is aligned or not aligned, and where we need to make changes or not make changes. One of the other things, visionary leadership, that was relevant was a reconfiguring of the master schedule. We hired a new employee after we reconfigured the master schedule, and that master schedule is included in this section. And what we did is we prioritized a specific subject due to the fact that we were not having a great number of students being successful in the Smarter Balance assessment this past year. So we reprioritized how the master schedule was set up, and that was so we can see where we're going to go down the road. And that's exciting. That was exciting work and helped me throughout this process. Another area of visionary leadership that I was able to include in this was the process of reconfiguring our wrestling program. It's an area that a vision was needed to give the program direction. Through various conversations with individuals, following our public complaint procedure, and collecting appropriate documentation that followed policy, and having to make difficult decisions that impacted people's lives, but ultimately created the best scenario for the program and for all those involved. And so that was a difficult process, but we were able to create a vision for the wrestling program, and then ultimately that's going to benefit not only the program, but the people that are involved in the program for years to come. Final thing for visionary leadership, in each section of this, I tried to do something totally different. You know, we started with curriculum, and then we went into the master schedule, and then we went into a sport. One of the things we did was we developed a maintenance calendar, so to speak, and coordinated a plan that encompassed all the maintenance department needs and the teachers' needs, and so that we could see where we're going as far as down the road with maintenance in our district. So things like creating summer maintenance schedules for the things that teachers needed immediately, and then long-term maintenance plans. What facilities are we going to update or upgrade down the road? That's also included in this. So that was very interesting work and helped organize the thought process down the road for our district. The second competency 2, instructional improvement. And I talked about adjusting the master schedule, and so we also did that and that was improving instructional. That was providing instructional improvement because we reviewed the assessment of knowledge and skills in the past, the old Oaks test, and then we also reviewed the Smarter Balance test. And we looked closely at mathematics, and mathematics was one of the areas, because of the state standards changing, students now have to have Algebra 1 and or higher, and so we adjusted the master schedule so that those students will be able to hone their skills in those courses, and then in turn be better prepared for statewide assessments. Another instructional improvement was we adjusted the in-service calendar. The in-service calendar, also known as the academic calendar in our district, we created various professional development opportunities for teachers, as well as more time to prepare in the classroom. The school board approved this academic calendar. It was one of the school board's goals, so they were very willing to entertain this idea. And in the long run, staff is more opportunity to participate in professional development on campus as well as off campus, and we also have more prepared teachers in the classroom when students arrive at the beginning of the year. Another thing that we worked on this summer and into the fall was implementing full-day kindergarten for the first time in Union School District history. There's been some growing pains. It's been difficult. It's been difficult to learn how to make this program work. We were able to use different facets of what we do in our school district as far as our title program, our special ed program, and those kinds of things, so that we were able to find ways to improve the academic environment for those students in a full day scenario. One of the bigger successes that we've done with instructional improvement is we designed a new class for our high school. This high school class was designed to improve the connection between the home and the school. oddly enough, we called the class Connections. And so now you have roughly a group of students that meet with a specific teacher every day. I also have my own Connections group, and I meet with those students every day. It's roughly between 15 and 20, so it's a good low class number. And there's lots of things that we're doing in that. One of the things is we're talking about assessments. We're talking about how they're doing academically, checking grades and things like that. And one of the other things is we're doing student-led parent-teacher conferences quarterly, and we're not doing those at the end of the quarter. We're doing those halfway through the quarter, and so the students have an opportunity to display their work. I have all the conference scheduling type forms in here that we developed. But what I would tell you is that we've seen a very significant drop in the students that are on our academic ineligible list now that we have this Connections class. Because they are making a connection. That teacher is making a connection with that kid, and we're improving the academic success of students district-wide, in the high school. And then one of the instructional improvement things I was able to, as the district testing coordinator, I've developed the trainings and I've instilled those trainings that were developed in our district, and I've been able to train the staff to be test administrators in our district. So that's also included in here, all the different modules that we went through and those kinds of things. So that was competency 2. Competency 3, effective management. Effective management, there's lots of different things that I have listed here. I'll hit some of the highlights for you. I know that one of the big major things was completion of our Union Education Association and Oregon School Employees Association negotiations. We were able to finalize our contract negotiations, which is it's a major success in our district. And you learn through those operations and through those negotiations and dealing with union representation about what is a priority to them and what are the things that need to be a priority in the district. To manage the organization, operations, and the resources to promote the most effective learning environment, because that's what we're here to do and we're here to teach. So that was contract negotiations. Those are also listed included in the back of my folder here as the completed negotiations contract that we were able to complete. Another was the budget process. We went through the entire budget process. And we need to manage our resources effectively, and so through the budget process, many areas of the district were evaluated to ensure that they are creating a positive impact on the school's performance. It's a lengthy process, but we need to be good stewards of these dollars, and through this budget process, you're able to do that. So other things of effective management that I've included in here, schedules for the start of the year. We do different things to create that environment at the beginning of the year, so teachers are they're most effective, as well as the student body. And so then there's also different things that I've done where I've met with students and I've worked with them on their schedules, and so that they are in the appropriate classes so that they are on track to graduate. I've included some of the schedule change forms that we use and those kinds of things. Some of the credit check forms that we use are also included in here so that we can ensure that students are on track to graduate. And then some of the final things is supervision of events and concerts and miscellaneous things that occur on campus. It's always interesting. There's never a dull moment. You never know what's going to happen. And you could be mopping up a spill or where somebody got sick at one moment, and then the next moment you're escorting a fan out of the gymnasium because they're acting inappropriately. And so those are effective management skills. My hope is that for everyone is that no one is ever calling the paramedics or the police. that's what my hope is for you with management in extracurricular events. So competency 4, we're getting there. Inclusive practice, the coordination of a newly purchased reader board. This has been a huge undertaking. We're trying to make that connection with our community, and so one of the ways to make sure our community knows what's going on campus at all times is a form of communication. We live in a very small rural community where that reader board is the way that some of our major patrons that have attended games for years and years and years, long after their students have graduated, they use that as their way to find out what's going on at the school. In the times and the climate that we live in, there is not a lot of dollars. So we went out and we were able to raise some money from the city and from our booster club. And basically, long story short, you're working with multiple organizations. Working with these multiple organizations, everybody has an opinion. Everybody feels that their opinion is the most important opinion. And so learning how to include everybody and make them feel included in this decision-making process and the implementation of this, which is a ultimate benefit to the school and the community. And so that's part of what is included in here. And so that would be one example. The final example for competency for inclusive practice, implementation of policy. School board policy and the policies of our district, that is, as administrator, what you rely on. And so what we're doing is we've been going through updating our school board policy, only so many policies at a time, but we've also updated policies in regards to eligibility, in regards to office referrals, in regards to cell phones, those kinds of things. And then periodically what we do is about every other school board meeting, we go through and look at the policies that Oregon School Board Association recommends for updating, and we update those, and those are included in here. And you can see, for example, here are the proposed policies from the Oregon School Board Association, and then the next section, what I include to my school board is the current policies. And so then the school board has the opportunity to look at what current policy we're operating under, and then the proposed policy, and then we go through those and we read through those, and then we edit them that would make it appropriate for Union School District. So that would be competency 4, and moving right along to competency 5, ethical leadership. Ethical leadership, as a superintendent of Union School District, I've had the privilege of having 5 board members that conduct my evaluation annually. Due to the fact that we had a vacant board position, we opened the position up for appointment. Many could view this as an opportunity for me as a superintendent to select the person that I want to be my supervisor. Very delicate situation, and one in which honest and consistent behavior is of the utmost importance. By refraining from my involvement in the appointment and the selection process, I was able to create neutrality, and by displaying being impartial. That's ethical leadership. And so that's one way that I showed through that. I could put a couple examples in that here. And then one of the areas of ethical leadership, and this is a very important section to me and has been a big part of what I've learned as an administrator, doing discipline. That's been a big part of my job as an administrator here. And so working with students regardless of their grade level and regardless of why they are in the office is extremely challenging, but can be one of the most rewarding experiences I've had in the field of education. Parents send their kids to school every day hoping for the best, wishing for the best, and have done the best they can for them that morning. Having this in the back of my mind helps me through situations that are very difficult. Working with parents of children that are sent to the office helps one become familiar with multiple backgrounds, as well as the understanding that everybody has a different norm. This being said, what is normal in your house may not be normal in mine, which may or may not be considered the norm for a school setting. I've come to realize that discipline of students is not just another form, that it is just another form of teaching and or coaching. Working with kids about the understanding of behaviors and the understanding that of what is acceptable in the school environment can be tumultuous at times. Ultimately, through the time working with students, I've developed a personal philosophy in the regards to discipline. One of the first things that I feel is important is consistency. This doesn't mean that everything you do every time, is the same, but the saying that fair is not always equal is what I try to strive for, and explaining that. Spending time to explain this to students and attempting to give them multiple opportunities to connect to the material at which is presented to them is something I try to do with every student on every incident. The second item I feel is important is when disciplining students is respect. Respecting them as a person, as an individual, as a human being is helpful in building a connection with them regardless of why they're in the office. Establishing this respect with the students helps create the ability to communicate effectively even if emotions are high. Finally, I truly believe in the saying, actions speak louder than words. I do my best each and every day to practice this, display this, and hopefully show students that your actions, they do matter. I had a high school student come into the office during a discussion about a behavior. The high school student turned the quote around and asked, "So if you are what you eat, then you are what you do." This was a great discussion with a student, and I believe through the discussion the student became to understand that actions do speak louder than words. So I've spent a lot of time talking about this. You can see I'm passionate about being ethical and about working with students and trying to create the best. There are other examples in here about working with different things, but I've spent a lot of time talking about Competency 5 and what ethical leadership is to me, and you can see there are multiple things in here that I've listed, whether school board minutes or those kinds of things that show those kinds of things, and or notes from incidents where I've removed names, talking with students and working with students. Finally, Competency 6, and in the climate that we live in, we're currently operating as far as budget in the state of Oregon. We're always looking to save dollars. By saving dollars for the school district, one can ensure the longevity of specific programs or ad programs that may have been cut over the years. In the past few years, we've had the retirement of one of our custodial positions. This position was a full-time position, and the individual held the position for over 30 years. One of the major costs of the districts are health insurance benefit packages. These health insurance benefits packages cost nearly as much as the employee makes annually. So you look around and you see what other districts are doing. Other districts are hiring multiple part-time people so they don't have to pay those benefit packages. Well, that idea was brought up in our district and brought up to the school board and discussed. And one of the things that in our climate, in the economy that we live in, is that was frowned upon in our community. In our community, we have a lot of poverty. And so limiting the opportunity for for community members to apply for a job that has benefits was a big deal. And so we, instead of restructuring that and trying to save dollars for the district, we learned from our community and listened to our community members, and we rehired that position as one position as full-time. And so that is a life lesson and a learning lesson of this specific community. Can I say that is for each and every community across our state or nation? No. But I learned that from this community through that ordeal. Another example is we unfortunately had a tragedy in our district. We had one of our students' families had one of the parents pass away. The parent was a staunch, dominant, oppressive individual, and so when he was gone, the family didn't know how to operate without him. So the school district reached out to this family, and we did whatever we could do to help facilitate a warm and friendly environment for those students. Well, we came up to some barriers. The spouse of this individual was deaf and mute, so you can see that communication was a barrier. We were able to locate someone that spoke sign language. We tried using the students to communicate, but that became tumultuous, to say the least. So we found a sign language interpreter. We were able to coordinate with that sign language interpreter and the parent and our care coordinator so that we could get everybody together. We created a schedule. So now each teacher that has one of the 4 students is able to meet with the parent and the sign language interpreter, and now there's no language barrier, and now those students are being very successful, and now there's no miscommunication. And so being receptive and being understanding to what's going on in your environment to all the people around. And that's competency 6. And so that's the meat of the portfolio. The rest of the portfolio is just like I said in the beginning. It's all the nuts and bolts, the portfolio assessment, the CCAPE, supervisor's assessment, my professional education plan, the FAACC, my site mentor evaluation, okay, and my handbooks are in here as well, like I mentioned before, student handbook, and then my evaluation handbook, and then the contracts that we negotiated, and that is the portfolio. I thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to what is next for me in the field of education, because it's a learning curve, and you come to work every day and you do the best you can every day for each and every student, and that's what makes this job fun, because at the end of the day you know you've done everything you can. I appreciate your time, and I wish everybody the best, and I look forward to what happens in the field of education next. Thank you.